allowing that sound to reverberate in our heart and soul. The striking of the gong to shatter all previous programs, limiting beliefs, and then allowing the sound as it fades to draw us deeper and deeper inside of our soul to the altar of God. Here we meet the Holy Spirit. And here in our hearts and souls we say, beloved Father, Mother God, we give thanks that you've created us in your image. We give thanks that every being is holy, is innocent, is at peace, in a state of eternal bliss and joy. And yet we also own that that's not how we feel these days in our lives on earth. We somehow have created something that is not a reflection of perfect love, always. Instead, it seems as though it's an insanity. So we bring to the altar all of our misbeliefs, our misbehavings, our misspoken words. We bring all these to the altar. Forgive us, we know not what we do. We surrender all of these to you. We choose not to justify a single thought, word, or behavior. We don't know anything clearly. So we humbly, vulnerably put everything on the altar and say, take what you will. Take all of our unhealed wounds, all of our what we thought were righteous behaviors. We surrender all of these to you now, as unconditionally as possible. And this allows us to come to a clearer, cleaner place so that your presence can descend into our being, filling our hearts with new ways of seeing, speaking, thinking. Then we can live, be, share the Christ life. Then we can say the kingdom of God is at hand. It's all around us now. And in advance, we give thanks that this is the direction we're going. This is the direction you've always asked us to go, and we're giving thanks that we're choosing this as our only choice in life. And so it is.
Please join me in reading our mission statement, which you'll find on the white cards in the seat backs in front of you. And together we say, the Global Center for Christ Consciousness is a spiritual center for students and masters on the spiritual path. We are dedicated to awakening the inner Christ and to creating a world of love, peace, joy, and abundance. And now for our sacred reading for today. From St. John of the Cross. You have forgotten that longing itself is the answer to the longing. And in the very crying out for the Holy One is when the Holy One pours itself into you. It begins with the wrenching feeling that you mistake for separation from your divine source. You ache with an ineffable yearning for God that no human being can meet, that no sensual pleasure can fill, and no earthly success can touch. And then you recognize you are a mountain stream, and your longing is the very current that pushes you towards the sea. When the stream merges with the sea, no separate self remains, and it is absorbed in totality. With this, merely by being what is, does truth release you from everything it is not. It is in your total annihilation that God's grace and glory fills thee, and his love becomes your own. And that which you were once longing for, you inevitably become and emanate this truth to all. And so it is.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us online and in person. Somebody give me a pen. There's none up here. Thank you. That's okay, because I can't see with the light, so I thought, I'll just get out of the way. And then these past life memories started going, oh my God, no. If you'd be so kind as to share what what primarily, you would like me to talk about today, or what topics you'd like me to address today.
Unity.
What is it?
Unity. Divine ascension.
Divine order. Euthanasia.
Memories.
To be one with God.
Hold on. What was the one over there? Nobody remembers?
Divine order.
Okay, thank you. What was it? Yes? Go ahead. Who was here?
Honoring responsibilities.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So many changes obviously going on in our world. There's politics, there's economy, there's also global changes, and there's always shift and change in this world of illusion. It's kind of funny because God is eternal. God doesn't have like cycles and good days and bad days. The presence of God, heaven, is just this perfect state of bliss always. And part of us still lives there. Our I am presence is still plugged in there. But we allowed ourselves to basically go into a dream, a trance. So we didn't leave heaven. We're in heaven dreaming that we're somewhere else. So that's why indigenous people talk about life is a dream within a dream. It's the dream world, dreaming the world into being. But it's funny because we think of dream as being, oh, dreamy, that person's so dreamy, like it's all positive. It's really a nightmare. Well, it is. You can say, no, but there's rainbows and they're pretty. Yeah, the rainbow will end. And go looking for a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, by the way. You'll end up frustrated. This is why Buddha was seemingly so pessimistic, saying that this world offers you nothing. This world is only going to offer you pain. And it sounds terrible. He says, no, but there's a good outcome. And that is, there's an answer. Wake up from the dream. Wake up from the nightmare. Well, Christ comes along and says, let me explain it more. You don't just wake up from the nightmare and then you're suddenly one with God. You go from the nightmare to a happy dream. Because so many mystics made it like, how do I get all the way there? How do I get holy and perfect? And it's too intense. Now some of us still live with that perfectionism. I got to become spiritually perfect. I got to be holy. No bad thoughts. Only good thoughts, good words, good deeds. It's intense. And Jesus is like, listen, loosen the bone, Wilma. Just, ease up on this. Man, you're making it too intense. No, but we have to. No. You thought. It's an ego infiltrating again, making you go from horrible thinking life addiction to absolute perfection. That's a trick. It's a trick. You don't. What you do is forgive yourself for this one. You'll find yourself in a middle world, and then God will reach down to the middle world and take you the rest of the way home. You can't get yourself home because there is no self to get home. We're all going together. So we thought it was if I just become mystical enough, if I become mystic enough, holy enough, perfect enough, but that was another ploy and trick of the ego. Wow. Oh my God, I see that. Yeah, I need do nothing. I'm going to practice allowing, going easier on myself, almost like parenting myself like I'm a 6-year-old that I love. Instead of, get it right, 6-year-old. I mean, that's a bit intense. But we used to live in nothing but the 6-year-old being flawed. It's a terrible world. I'm scared. I'm a 6-year-old. And so that was the nightmare. Then we thought it was make the 6-year-old be perfect and then everything's perfect. And look at how some of us just ended up with anxiety trying to get there. And it was because it was a trick again. What we need to do is let go. It's okay. I am getting there. Part of me is already home. Now I just need to go easier on myself. I don't mean enabling my garbage. I mean going easier on myself. Practice forgiving myself. Yeah, and I tried that today, but I would try a little more tomorrow. I mean, if you're a patient parent, that's how it should be. You know? Honey, did you color that? Yeah, but I colored outside. Well, let's practice tomorrow. Let's color some more. Isn't that pretty? You know, and just affirmative, positive, the way you would a child that you love. And I've said that many times. It's everybody's got these cosmic ideas about how to spiritually awaken. And I'm like, well, here's my answer. Treat yourself like you would a child you love. It's not like, and then Om Mani Padme and Boom Shakalaka and do this and do that, except on Mondays and then every other alternate Wednesday and then alternate leap years. Don't forget it's the other way around. It's like, geez, forget it. I don't even want to be spiritual. It's too intense. You know you're not going to get it right, and then you're going to judge yourself for it. So you learn to, there's this laughter. You know, I've shared the story before, but once upon a time when the Buddha was completing his life, and they're deciding who's going to be the next teacher that's going to replace him. And all the monks gather together, and he sits there and waiting for, who's going to bestow his blessing upon his follower, and they're all waiting. Who's it going to be? And, it's going to be the one that sits up the most, straight, the one that showed up early and was doing pranayama, and the other one that was repeating the Heart Sutra and, behaving just right. And each day they all gathered, he sat there and no selection, no selection, no selection. And then one day, one of the monks started laughing. He said, that's him. I mean, what a great selection process. When they asked me to come here, and I sat in my first board meeting, which I wasn't told that I'd be sitting in on board meetings, by the way, because I would not have taken this job. I'm telling you honestly, I'd have been like, board meeting, what? Because my thoughts about this was like, ooh, that's, intense. So I attended the board meeting, and they all did their thing, and they talked about what they want to, as board members, and, and we got to me, and I just said, fun. If this isn't fun, I will be gone. And I don't mean it's always got to be fun, and I don't mean I'm projecting like we got to be childish. I'm just talking about, I love the ease. There's got to be an ease and a flow. Make this too serious, and it's not going to happen. You see? When I was a kid and playing soccer in high school, I wanted to play for fun. And when we were so good that we went to the championships, I started going, uh-oh. Because now you have to win. You can't just play. I'm like, coach, let me be in the junior varsity. Those are the guys that are like drinking before the game. I'm not drinking. I'm not into that. But I'm like, but they have fun. These guys are fun. It's funny to watch them. They go to kick the ball and they miss it. And and I'm just falling over laughing. But varsity, you've got to win. And I'm like, man, this is just too intense. But it's a mirror of how I am with the world. It's like, relax. I'm not saying I can impose that on a serious world. I'm saying we have the right to be able to say, we have the ability, let me say it that way. We have the ability to choose what we want to experience in this world. So we can go from a nightmare to a happy dream. And the happy dream is a bit more at ease. It's not in denial. It's not pretending that there's no drama. But it is choosing in our hearts to say, but I can choose how I respond to this. You might still have traffic, but how you respond to it might be different. Instead of being late and then the traffic getting in your way and then getting angry, you just leave early. Now, I'm not saying we should be in denial. We have to own the fact that we think we're in the dream. And in the dream, this big circle are cycles within cycles. So this is you at the beginning of time, and at the end of time, here's where you are. There, still. It's not like, I hope that, I'm not here. And no, you begin and end here. In God is the Alpha and Omega, and we're part of God. So this is a huge, I say it another way. And when you look at it from this vantage point, which is the choice maker, That point right there, here's your spirit, here's your soul, and here's your human. And we're like, oh, my life, and oh, in past lives, and oh, there's my family, they're back again, and around it she goes. And this is the wheel of life Buddha said you have to step out of. Now, wherever you are in any lifetime, this could be your first mini cycle within a big cycle, it could be your 50,000th. Anytime you make a choice, it's almost like you go from the outer perimeter of just the big movement, the storm. You go to the eye of the storm, and there's an elevator, and you get in, and it takes you back to this point where we chose to believe that we're something that we're not. And we start identifying. It doesn't mean, bless you, it doesn't mean a complete awakening. It just means, oh, a simplicity arrives, a greater clarity. Every time you forgive, you're back to this point in your soul where you once decided to judge yourself and you fell into the reaction from judge. As soon as cause and effect, as soon as we judge, here we go. Every time you forgive, elevator, boom, you're back here. Free will doesn't mean I can freely choose garbage. If you're truly exercising will, the only true will is the divine one, and that's at the very lowest is in our soul. At the highest, it's in our spirit. So every time we forgive, every time I choose to say, no, not today. I'm not going to choose to see things the way I used to see things. I'm not going to jump to the same conclusions, and so on and so on. I'm not going to believe that my addictions have the best of me. Anyone can get off of the wheel to the elevator and home. It is advisable and it is easier to accomplish this with God's help. Instead of, well, I can figure this out. Really? You've existed for billions of years and you haven't figured it out yet. What makes you think today in a few hours, you're going to just get it? It comes from the vulnerability. Remember, spirit, soul, manufactures all of this. Soul is the one that's dreaming all of this. In a sense, you can say it's our divinity that's allowed ourselves to become a soul and dream this. But in our soul is the chooser. In our spirit is the knower. The knower doesn't have choices, which sounds totally deflating. Wait, you're saying in God there's no choice? There isn't a need for a choice because you know. Everything is clear and known. There's no this or that. It just is. I am that I am. See? And that's God being vulnerable. Who are you? Who do I say I was talking to? I am that I am. And the people are scratching their head trying to decipher it. What if we spell it backwards? What if we flip it around and add it? And people are trying to, like it must be a secret. And because it was so simple. But it's like Lao Tzu who wrote the Tao. He said, my words are simple. You just have problems. You don't understand it. Jesus says the same thing in A Course in Miracles. This is actually simple. It just seems complicated because you're so messed up. I'm paraphrasing, but So simplicity seems complicated to complicated minds. And it all becomes so much simpler. And there are so many people that would take what I'm saying and shred it and say, oh, this simplicity. No. Things are far more complicated than that. And I'm sorry for them. Because God is actually simple. God is. Is it simple for me to remember that? Yes, actually. Do I pull it off every day? I being any of us? No. Well, why? If it's simple, because we've made up something that isn't simple. We've made up a thinker, an overthinker, a doubter. We've made up a person who gets triggered. I'm not able to see clearly today because of my triggers, my past lives. I'm seeing through, as the Jewish saying is, I don't see things as they are, I see things as I am. I'm seeing through my filters. And those filters, good days and bad days. Does that sound like a perfect guide? No, but it's the best one I have. I'm sorry for you. Because there is another voice. There is another guide. The Holy Spirit of God, the Divine Mother. And she says, honey, you're actually the Christ. You're actually a holy child of God. But you thought you fell and became a mere human mortal. And it's all messy. But if you call on me, I'm actually going to come to you and I'm going to birth the Christ in you again. That's the second coming. I'm going to birth the Christ that was there in the beginning now is going to return. So here's the return. And I'm not negating the Christian concepts of Jesus and his role. I'm not at all. I'm saying he said, all that I am, you'll become and more. You'll do and more. We have to find that. We have to surrender to that Christ consciousness so that we're born again. Born again meaning not just the traditional sense, born again in the experiential sense. I'm starting to see things through the eyes of Christ. I'm starting to see as he saw, because he said, everything I've done, you'll do more. Here I am. Okay, show me that. Well, I saw through the eyes of forgiveness. Thank you, Jesus. I'm going to do the same. Saw through the eyes of love. Thank you. All the things he's accomplished. And it's not just like walking on water. You know, that I understand that people think of the fancy, the frills, that spirituality means you can do cool things. And I've enjoyed the idea that as I develop in consciousness, it is true that things just come to me. I feel very blessed that it's almost like being a mystic, a master on so many levels. I being me, but also any of us that have felt this way. You realize you caught on to Reiki more than others. You created prosperity. It's beautiful to see the effects, the outcomes of our spiritual growth. I mean, and it encourages us to grow more. I get all that. It's fantastic. But even if you become the one who walks on water, I mean, listen, when I came to Sedona, people just, oh my, droves of people, because it was this, oh my God, there's this cool new thing. And it's exciting and it's great. I'm like, wow, this is fun. But you know what? It's also, they're going to approach it from a shallow level first. Only the ones that are more real stayed for the more real. There were some there that it was a fad. Everybody's talking about, so they would come, and attend. And it was a little weird. But, it seemed exciting for everybody. But, I could tell that they're only at a certain level. Just wait. There's going to be, this week I'll say something that one doesn't like and they won't be back. And that one, because they're not there for what's really happening. You see what I'm saying? So as you're growing and you're starting to become that deeper person, you're going to have collateral damage, casualties. They're going to fall away. Some of the people that used to be related to your old self, but also people that were there just at a surface level to see your new self. They won't be there for long. To bring up politics, and that'll help. Bring up stuff like that. They fall away, man, each direction. And it's a tricky thing because to thine own divine self be true. But that doesn't mean you go out of your way to part the, people and get rid of them all. You keep owning who you are and where you're at. Some of you asked about things like divine order. And also one of the comments, honoring responsibility. This is what it's about, being responsible, really recognizing who am I? There's a spiritual me that's never gone away. And it's not the one that, I contacted that spiritual me yesterday. It's when I found my lost car keys. No. The spiritual you isn't even aware of the material world. It is so in a state, it's like another dimension where there's no material world, so therefore it's oblivious to the idea of material things. So your divine self doesn't go, wow, my divine self came through and found my car keys. Your divine self, if you were contacting it at all, would have been completely at peace with or without your keys. It's not of this world. It can't be defined. But your soul is what we call our higher self. This is your highest self, your spirit. Your soul is your higher self. The human self is the fallen self. And there's people that get annoyed when I say that. No, I want my human self to be acknowledged. I know. And that's why you're still here incarnating. Because you still want to identify with that fallen human self. I'm not saying the fallen self is bad. I'm saying it doesn't even exist. All it is for now is a reflection of how connected you are in here. And in my heart, if I believe I'm a flawed person, this is where your core issues are, and your core ability to awaken and remember God. This is the place, man. It's all in the heart and soul. So if in my heart I really believe, no matter what I think with another chakra, emotionally feel or experience the outside world, no matter what I do in the outside world, lower 3 chakras, no matter what I do on those lower 3 human levels, it doesn't have any real lasting effect. If I believe I'm flawed in here, no matter what I do down here, it doesn't change. So that's why some people say, I've done everything to heal down on this level. But if you don't change the frequency that's sending the message down about the issues, the illnesses, the belief systems, the financial issues, it can't change. It's got to change in here. And this means I have to forgive myself for my false belief systems, and I have to forgive others for manifesting those symptoms and being annoyed at them, blaming them, shaming them. You know, so here, in the heart, there's a choice, a chooser. Here there's a knowing. Here there's a chooser, but yet there's no choice to be made. So instead, I just learned to go, here I have an ability to choose reality or illusion to be my day. Which one do I want to believe? Now, what humans say is, I have rights. As a human being, I have rights, which affirms, as a human being, that you're a human being. And you have rights, which, by the way, you're wrong. Because you're not a human being. I have human rights, basic human, no. I understand what you're thinking. But if you have human rights, you know what you're going to do? You're going to fight for them. And you're going to defend them. But when you fight for something, it means you don't already have it. When you defend all the invaders against it, you're not at peace. And I understand that this is the desperation that some of us are in. And I'm not going to wrong you for it. It's just sad because that's where you're at. And you can identify with that till the end of time. I have rights. I have to fight for my rights. I have to fight to be heard. You don't really. The more you know who you are, the more you smile. The more there's a peace. And I know it's frustrating. You might enter a room. You might enter a board meeting. You might enter a committee, a meeting somewhere, and feel like you have something very important to say. But the more you get into, I need to say it, the less you are the thing you want to say. You see the difference? It goes into the doing, the compensating, the making up for, and now you're caught in this pendulum. And it's sad because the more I affirm that I have rights, I have the right to be heard, the more I'm identifying with the human rights, the human. It's never right. And if I fight for my rights, I'm fighting against yours. Now we're conflicted, and that's not God. It's certainly not a reflection of this, but it tells me that I'm off here. So if I'm going to deal with rights, I need to go into my heart and hear what you have to say. See, if I'm really getting this right, then the divine in me is going to encourage the divine in you. I don't need you to fight for your rights. I'm handing them to you. What would you like to say? That's what would happen if we were coming from that deeper place. If not from perfect spirit, at least in my heart and soul, I care about you. So what's happening for you? And it does make it harder to hear you when you yell and cuss and scream at me. It is harder. But in my ultimate higher self, I can handle it. I just don't know it yet. So speak nicely or I'll slam you. Well, that means I'm on the way, but I haven't quite gotten it yet. There is a part of us that's so pure, so holy, that it isn't fazed by what they say and what they do. Jesus never evaluated any of the people punching him in the face. Did he respond with, after all I've done for you? No. He loved the one that punched him. He loved the one that kicked him. He loved the one that spit on him. And he loved the one that liked him. All equally. He can't evaluate one more deserving than another. Now, I've got to say, that's pretty cool. And I'm not there yet. But I'm so grateful that I see that I'm getting there. See, there's no obsessiveness. I must be there. I'm really grateful. That I'm more there today than I was yesterday and last year and 10 years ago and 5 lifetimes ago. That's all we have to do is I know what's really happening here, and then set your course. Don't fight for your course. Just set your course. And then let's casually move in that direction. And when you react to people, when you're fighting for your rights, and then you're trying to fight against other people's rights, you're actually scaring them. You don't realize it. They might look like they're bold and they're scared. People don't act this way when they're not afraid. Dogs typically don't just bite. They don't just go, I just like this. I just like biting people. Something had to have entered, whether genetically or whatever else, emotionally, psychologically, something made them into being defensive like that. But fear is behind it. So human beings that bite with words, they're afraid. Forgive them, Father, they know not what they do, because they're afraid. Now, I'm not saying that's always easy. You know, when you see somebody overtly acting up, you don't just, oh, well, they're just afraid. If you see somebody harming somebody, it's okay to stop them. It's okay to restrain them. It's okay to imprison them if that's what's needed for today in the illusion. But never judge them as hopeless. Never judge them as being bad. They just know not what they do, and fear is getting the best of them. And it's best for them to be restrained so they don't take it out on other people, because then the fear, the illusion, the toxin is bleeding onto other people. We have enough of that. They've got enough of their own issues. They don't need you acting out. So no, can't do that today. And some of us think it's okay to enable those behaviors, and it's not. It's not okay to act them out. It's not okay to enable them. Those are two extremes. We have to come back, find our center. We have a destiny, and it's in God. That's the good news. That's the great news. The good news of the Lord isn't that just that Jesus is saving you, as they think. The good news of the Lord is you need no saving. The good news of the Lord is you're one with God and you never stopped. That's the great news, we'll call it. The good news is, even though we've forgotten that, there's a way to remember the great news. And even on my worst days, and again, my being any of us, even on my worst days, I give thanks that I can call out for help. Today is a lifeline day. You know, I don't care if you mail it in, text it in, pray it in, call out verbally. In some form, reach out for help when you're off. You know you're off because there's not a tranquility. There's not a state of peace. And that's a good compass. Somebody's yelling at me, how I respond to them. How can I bring the most peace to this moment? Now you might be like, peace? I'm not going to bring peace. I'm going to tell them what I think. And so it is. Which is fine, because then what you do is you go from this point of choice to say, I'm going to call up for peace, and you drop into the little whirlwind, and now you're spinning around with them. You know, like in the tornado type movies. And there you go. And then there they go. And whoosh, you know, and you just, you know, you're flying by every few seconds. And I can't believe they said that. And I can't believe that, you know, and around and around, and you're just caught up in it. But you have the ability. Here, this is our destiny. Here is the knowing and our destiny. That's the great news. But the good news is that if I get pulled down, I can choose again. I can choose something different. Love and forgiveness. I don't mean you're being passive, hyper passive. You're just choosing, how can I see this as God sees it? There's another way of looking at this. There's another way of feeling peace, or another more humanistic wording. How can I bring the greatest good? What would be the greatest good for the most people? Use simple questions like that. Or, what would I advise a child in this moment? That's not always going to be the exact wording, so you might try something else. Sometimes it's how can, but something different. Here is our ability to choose. And then here, we have our rights. Our destiny, our ability, and our rights. And the rights, the human beings love to fight to be right. I have to fight to prove this, and I have a fight to, to prove that. And there's seemingly no middle ground. It's a strange thing. Once upon a time, our own government was created as a republic, and then it started going in the words of like a democracy more so. But it's very interesting because it was being created as a republic, which is almost like the concept of bringing King David back and saying, if you have a great leader, and this is you in your own household or your own business, if you have a great leader, or in Chinese medicine it says, when Shen is right, the leader, your soul is right, everything else works beautifully. When Shen is off, everything else will be off. So all you need is a really beautiful, clear, spiritually guided leader. And it didn't go that way. We started saying, let's be more like a republic, which is reflecting back almost to Roman times, to certain times, when let's let a group of people decide. It's harder to get a group of people to each be plugged into God than it is one person. But it's dangerous either way. So what we did is at one point was say, Thomas Jefferson, sort of gave in and said, it's scary to give all the power to one person. Because if they're off, it could be really dangerous. We could be returning to, a king running everything. If the king is holy, it wouldn't have been a bad thing. So let's go with a group of people. Yeah, but they're all a group of screwed up people. Now what? There's no answer in a world of duality. So your job and my job isn't to get the right person in office. It's for us to get right in us. That's it. When you die and go to the other side, they're not going to say, well, who did you vote for? Because that's going to determine whether you enter the kingdom or go to hell. They're not going to, I swear to you, they're not going to ask you that. I promise, if you come. You have to marry a politician or whatever, to face your issues even more. The only way you're walking through those gates is when you leave no footprints in the snow. There's no shadow cast. There's no me. It's whatever God would have me do. It's what would peace have me do? What would bring the most peace in this moment? And if somebody's talking politics on one side or the other, listen to them. Just listen to them. Instead of, no, I know already. Stop. Listen. And you don't have to listen. You have the right to live in hell. You have the right to fight. You have the right to argue. You have the right to do, but look what it leads you to. So the people that say, I want my rights, it's very scary and it's very sad because they're not here. I don't care, even if they tell you they are. The heart and soul has very little to say. It just smiles more. And it listens to these arguments. It's almost amusing. Like, oh, that's a good one. That's kind of funny. You actually believe that. You look at these things and they don't have the same grip that they once had. Are any of you feeling that in your growth, that you're noticing you just feel kind of clearer from these things? Has anybody noticed and kind of not liked that you're clearer? Anybody? Several? Yes. It's kind of interesting. People just kind of not getting what you're doing. Why are you so peaceful? You know what you should be doing is fighting and arguing, screaming and cussing. And don't wrong them. Don't judge them, because then you're creating a duality with them. Just see it and just feel compassion for them. To fight so hard. Why do they fight so hard? Because they don't know. There isn't this peace in knowing the truth of God. So people don't seem to stop and recognize when they're living in that duality, and that it just can't bring you peace. They're going to have to defend these rights. They're going to have to defend their beliefs. Why do you have to defend the beliefs if they're yours, if you have them? See, honestly, you never fight for something that's really clear. If somebody said to you, if you're light skin colored, any color, and somebody said, are you from Earth? Well, yeah, why? Well, because I just noticed that you're a cobalt blue skin. It says that cobalt blue. I'm clear. Why would you fight with somebody that says you have cobalt blue skin? Do you understand what I'm saying? They're a little off. If I were you, I wouldn't argue with them. I would go, oh, really? Oh, that's nice. Okay. Honestly, fight with them, and that would really affirm and confirm that you're that insecure that you don't even know that your skin is a normal shade. Do you see what I'm saying? Fighting with people affirms that you're doubting your truth. Therefore, you have to argue with. No, I'm arguing because I know if you knew, you would smile and only simply know that, oh, that poor person. Now, it's easy for me to use the joke and, blue skin and you can laugh. But it's the same when somebody says, you're stupid. You're not very intelligent. That's a harder one for me to hear. Why? Because that's more believable than having blue skin. That one's a little closer to home. You see what I mean? You're not attractive. You're this. It's easy, for us to get triggered by those kinds of things. But it's easy because we doubt. There is a point where we go from the human cycles and reactions and tornadoes, twisters, to a knowing in our heart. And even here isn't our ultimate knowing in God. So in God is my ultimate identity and its divinity. In my soul, I choose. It's still a place of doubt, let's call it, but I choose to believe the truth of God or these things of my human self. And you just reach down from your soul. You don't get caught up. Don't get caught up in becoming the personality. Do your best to stay in your soul and pluck the. Well, how do I know where they are? Show up every day. When you feel the off-piece kind of thing, there's a weed. Well, I wouldn't have them if it weren't for them. Oh, another weed for you to pluck. Because the more you're blaming, then the more you're fighting for your right to blame. I have a right to tell them they're wrong. I'm sorry for you. Because if you have the right to fight with them, they have a right to fight with you. Now you're living in duality. Somewhere in here, all this stuff, even the apostles, going on and on. Jesus stayed centered and just watched them, kind of amused. But when push comes to shove, he would, hey, listen, and call them on it. Now, when he calls them on it, is he having a right to argue with? No, he's just going to come from a very clear place. I love you, but, and speak. Now, any of us can say, oh, well, then that's what I've been doing. Every time I argue with somebody, I'm coming from my Christ. No, not likely. If I were you, I would bet that it's not the case. If you speak and you're trying to correct people, you're almost never coming from your divine self. But as we grow, we will be able to see things and correct things from that place. I just wouldn't assume that I'm there yet. So I wouldn't start launching into, I think I'm going to start calling these the Michael Mirdad 10 corrective measures from Christ that I'm going to start using when I talk to people. And just walk down the street correcting, you're wrong. But it's coming from Christ. That's really narcissistic and crazy. It's better for you to assume, let me double check. Let me double check before I speak. If I'm going to speak, let me speak as lovingly as possible, as patiently as possible, and so on. Then you're coming from as close to as you can today from the right place. So our human self that fights for rights is wrong. And I know people wouldn't want to hear that, but it's true. Because I'm in the duality, and duality doesn't even exist. It's a hologram. It's an illusion. I don't want to live in the hologram. I don't want to fight the hologram. I don't want to, look what happens. The less I know who I am, the more I have to fight for territory. Some of you have said, I was in a household of 10 kids. We had to fight for attention. Or you psychically snipped the cord and you just found yourself and you move on. I know it hurts. My partner, they were always looking at others and I've had to fight for their affection. You didn't have to. You could have said goodbye and just accept your own. You know, we're the ones that think we have to fight for getting a degree. Some of you watching, have come to me for sessions, private sessions, and had to fight in college for you to get your appropriate certifications and licensings and you've had deans of school that had plots against you, really legitimate reasons to not allow you to make it through school, and you had to fight. And I'm glad you made it if you made it. I'm glad you survived if you survived. I'm so happy for you that you didn't get crushed and collapse. Yet, there's a point where you realize, wow, I never needed their approval. I fought for I had to fight for my dad's approval. Why? Cut loose. Just go on your own. It's okay. Don't leave depressed that you didn't get their approval, but don't stay and fight for their approval. Just allow. You're already okay. And if I'm in need, please understand, fighting for your rights, and I understand on earth there's a place for that. But when you let go and let God, it's an interesting thing. All of a sudden, all that you were fighting for can happen. Somehow it comes to you. Why in 12 steps are you trying to include God in your program? It makes it easier than you fighting for your sobriety. You have a power seemingly beyond you, that can come in and give you the strength. It's fantastic. Why doesn't that make sense to more people? Let me call that power in when it comes to needing approval. No thanks. I won't be, you may or may not send them an email. Hey, Dad, Mom, guess what? I no longer need your approval. It's probably too triggering. I wouldn't do it. But the point is, energetically, that's your statement to the world. I'm okay. You see? You don't need anything. The more you fight to get it, the more you do to accomplish it, it means you don't have it. And the it you want ultimately is the peace and presence of God, not the accomplishment. It's the peace of God. And so many of us would save ourselves so much work, time, money, anxiety, to accomplish things. And this concept of just how many mystics have explained this. Mother Teresa saying, I've been to all these different countries, and I've been to countries where they had no food, where one piece of fruit was shared between 4 children. And then I've been to America where they have plenty, and I've never seen a more miserable group of people. Why? That's kind of a weird thing to think. If we have, why are we miserable? Because there's not an acceptance. There's not a peace in here. There's a grasping for something. And what that means, and when I met the children that were having visions with Mother Mary in Medjugorje, it just happened miraculously that one of them connected with me and asked me to go with them to their home, which typically never happened. So there I am, and we went off and went to their home, and a translator with us. But we went and we sat, and she gave me some cookies and their version of like 7-Up. And I sat there and we talked, and she said, where are you from? And I said, America, And she's like, And I'm like, what? And she tells the translator, he doesn't seem American. He doesn't have the anxiety they have. I'm like, well, that's a nice compliment, But that's a frequency. And what it is I'm empty, so I'm grabbing and grasping and needing. You need nothing. If you identify with I am, there's I am and I am not. The I am God, the I am not my ego. But if I am identifying with the ego that I am not, I'm going to feel empty and I'm going to be more needy. I'm going to grab, I'm going to be desperate. So there's another way. God, help me to experience this from your consciousness. You don't just someday hope to earn your way home. You call it here now. Call in the consciousness of God. Put on the mind of Christ, as it says in the Bible. And use your own wording. But the I am presence of God, I've never lost that. So when you do your prayers and your affirmations, your heal, when you do your work, Reiki or whatever you do, we can call it different things, but why call it all so many different things? It's okay. But the bottom line is it's the truth of God. When you let go and you're doing Reiki on somebody and you let go, you're accessing more of your I am presence. You're connecting with the truth of God. You're not just being a better Reiki practitioner, although on earth that's the way it looks. You're allowing. You're not fighting and earning your skills. You're allowing something greater. That's what we do here. This isn't just better musicians and better lectures and better whatever else. We set an intention for God's presence, and then it makes us all better at what we do, from attendees to members to whatever else we are. It's that intention. So allow your mind to believe that you are, not just earning, but that you are. You never lost contact with God. Everything that you do that's good and right and helpful and loving and of service is just the God in you flowing through more. And the more you allow that, the more comes. And you start to go, what happened? There's just this Zen-like not having to fight for or do. It's just something beautiful is happening. And if I would have come here 15 years ago and said that from the beginning, it'd have been too far away from where people were at. So we said it one way 15 years ago. I taught it one way 40 years ago, 18 lifetimes ago. It's as people are ready. But I'm saying to you, do we want to say, well, and I just want little tidbits and readiness at a time. Some of us can go, let's just go for it. Just let me just learn it all now. Bring it to me. You can be courageous like that and say, I don't need to be, I can be given crumbs, but I don't need to be. I'm ready, man. Let's go for it. But be careful what you ask for. Because if you say, let's go for it, you don't achieve greater consciousness without having to face and heal the opposite. Take a few centering breaths, please. Few centering breaths first. Just that decompressing. And then a moment of reflecting back. What did you hear in the last several minutes that made the most sense? Breathe it in as truth. Make it applicable to you. What did you hear that's important to you? You don't just listen and then leave and forget what you heard. Take a moment and integrate what you heard. What made sense to you and how it applies in your life. Hear from your soul. I recognize that I have this human self, the dysfunctional human self and personality. I see it. I'm not denying it or minimizing it anymore. I get it. I get that that human self can also reflect beauty and light, but I see that sometimes I don't. I see that it runs my life. I see that I have compulsions and addictions. I see that I have go-to fears. But this, I see through it now. This serves no ultimate purpose for me. It's not really what I want to be or do or feel. I don't fight it. I'm not shaming it. I just see it. And I'm giving this to you, Holy Spirit of God, in my heart. I'm giving as much of this side of me to you without cursing it. I just see through it. The one that fights, the one that pushes so hard to achieve, the one that has a history of having to fight to be seen, to be heard. But if I don't fight, it might not happen. I'm going to give you the fear too. My fear that I might not be seen. I'm going to be that vulnerable. I'm giving all of this to you. Holy Spirit of God, my divine mother. All my beliefs, the beliefs I've taken on from other people, but the beliefs I've had about myself. None of these are true. None of these came from God. These are made up images of me. And to cope with them, I wore masks of achievement and whatever else. So on the altar in my heart, I'm giving up masks as well, whatever they might be. I don't know who I really am. But you do know. And so I'm calling upon you to lift these out of my being now. And I'm calling upon you to let this beautiful mist of truth come from the highest heavens, through the cosmos, to this moment, through the crown of my head, filling me up. And with each inhalation, filling my heart center. In my heart, I choose to know the truth of who I am. Then my lower self, as we once called it, becomes a reflection of my higher self. And my lower self then suddenly becomes one who's living mastery. I become a bright light even in this world. In my heart, I call in the presence of peace and joy and love and oneness. I surrender my old life and welcome in a new life. Place at least one, if not both hands on your heart and feel that. Into my heart, I welcome your presence. Repeat after me, please. My life is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. My heart and soul is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. The fullness thereof. My finances are the Lord's and the fullness thereof. My body and health are the Lord's and the fullness thereof. My friendships are the Lord's and the fullness thereof. All politicians are the Lord's and the fullness thereof. My family is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. My mind is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. And again, my life is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. Soak that in for a moment. Holy, holy, holy is this moment. And we give thanks for sharing this experience. Two or more gathered with one intention, to be what God created us to be, and to learn to live in the knowingness of this. And in this knowing is total peace. And so it is. Take a moment just to reintegrate into the room. How's everyone feeling? Wiping eyes and blowing noses. That's cool. Yeah, sometimes it's just unspeakable, the beauty that, there's times when we're talking about mind-blowing concepts here and people are, wow, light bulbs going on. And there's other times where it's just the wave happens instead. And they both have a place. Both have a time and place. Some of you have asked about the last couple of weeks. I honestly don't remember the topics, the titles or the topics. But though the topics, if you've enjoyed the last couple of weeks, or even today, because they're kind of somehow tying in together, there are DVD sets that are in the bookstore or available online. If I were you, I would look at the one called Spirituality, because there's 4 different talks on any of the spirituality DVDs. But this one, for example, Spirituality 4, has karma and contracts, prosperity and abundance, be careful what you ask for, forgiveness versus judgment. So 4 different topics. And so there's like 5 or 6 different spirituality DVDs. So look at them to see if there's a topic that really speaks to you. And those are great ones to get. But some of the others have specific themes. 4 different talks on mythology, 4 different talks on Old Testament, or whatever the topic might be. So check those out if you like, all right? Can anybody share what you learned or heard that made the most sense from today's talk or meditation? Yes?
There's no self to get home.
There's no self to get home? Yeah. I mean, the only part of me that matters is already there, and that brings tranquility. However, I'm still living in the world. So how can I anchor that truth in my day-to-day life? Not combat it. How do I live that truth? And there's the rub, yes.
If we're going to have a happy dream, let's have some fun.
Yeah, if we're going to have a happy dream, lighten up. Loosen up, enjoy. Take the judgments out, and it helps. Relax, it helps. Allow that child, do what the child would want you to do today. I don't care what it is. You could be a vegan, but go have a Happy Meal once in a while. I don't know what that is, but I've heard of them. It's probably a burger and fries or something. I've never done a burger, but I know people like them.
When you talked about the knowing and the choosing and then fighting for the rights, and I kind of was shown moments where I have, that urge to fight, and then coming to the place of, hang on a minute, I have an opportunity to choose. And then there are just times where you just know, and it doesn't matter what happens, there's this peace that we're anchored in. It was such a beautiful reminder.
Nice. It's amazing, that knowingness. And then you see the urge to fight for things once in a while. But remember, the more I fight for it, the less I have it. The less I know. The more doing, the less being. So you watch that little dance and see how much you're doing of which, and it'll help you, know how to handle the next moment. Anyone else?
Michael,
Yes.
when you let go of the ego persona, God will help you find heaven on earth.
When you let go of the ego, the personality, the persona, the masks, the identities, the rest was, and then God will
Help you find heaven on earth.
help you find heaven on earth, help you remember who you are. Okay, one more.
When we know who we are, there's no reason to try and get gain. We can be born without gain.
Yes.
That's like aseptic, not living.
Yeah,
A gain means without gain.
right.
We have everything we need.
Yeah, and again, the more we know, there's less to grasp for, less, because you won't gain. You're how do you gain territory? You grasp for it, you fight for it, rather than And to be in that state of knowing doesn't mean you're vulnerable to people. You become invulnerable. You become, so clear that what they say and do and think about you, it just doesn't matter. But it's not because you're cold or thick-skinned, and that is a journey in itself. Because as a spiritual leader, I'm a sensitive person. So to be a spiritual leader hasn't always been easy because I'm not thick-skinned. And I refuse to become cold and thick-skinned. You see, so it's a weird position to be in. To be, and have the concepts and criticisms and projections and transference and all these things. For any of you, if you're watching a program like this, you're likely to be a little more sensitive than you are hardened. Okay? And that means you're probably going to identify with what I'm saying. And it's okay. You didn't do anything wrong by having sensitivity, because if I have to choose right now, if God said, okay, Michael, you won't have so many hurts in life if you're just thick in your skin. Push a button to be thick or be sensitive. I can't. I will not push the thick-skinned and become that. It's a bummer to be sensitive, but I would still choose it again. I'd rather be even hypersensitive than hyper cold. And when you see that, you go, there's more acceptance to it. Instead of, I wish I weren't so, I wish they wouldn't so much. You realize, well, it makes sense that it gets in sometimes and hurts a little bit. And it's my journey, your journey, our journey, to find balance with that. So you know how to be firm without being cold, and you know how to be sensitive without being crushed by other people. And it's, oh, there I am. And that doesn't come from a trick. It comes from a knowing and establishing who you are. And it helps to ask God to help you do that. Okay? All right, we're going to just take up our collection and do our closing prayer. You wanted to say something too. Do you want to add anything? Jay? Did you want to say something still?
Oh, it was in regards to our choice that is within the heart, and
Yeah.
how that reflects to that that dualistic choice.
Yeah.
To be present with that reflection of God.
Yes.
And human.
It's an amazing thing, guys. As the Bible puts it, every day choose whom ye will serve. Here, it's talking about you here in their heart. Choose whom ye will serve. And it says God or manna. What it means is the truth or the lies. Love or fear. Peace or conflict. That's what it means. Choose whom ye will serve. And then there's another saying in the Old Testament, and you know what? Others can do as they may, but I will serve the living God. And what that means is I'm going to keep choosing this as the voice for me. And there's times when you're like, yes, I affirm this and I feel it and wow. And there's other times that it's going to be, my life is collapsing. I can't believe this is happening, but I'm trying to keep the faith. That's better than just totally collapsing and losing faith that you'll be taken care of. It's okay. All of these things, challenges, guys, are a test. That's where you work the muscles that you claim to have. I believe in God. That's a muscle. Work it. That's what the universe is going to do. Speaking it is nothing. Oh, I believe in this and that. Really? Let's test it. I think I'd make a great parent. Let's see about that. And then all of a sudden you have triplets or whatever, because you were so clear that you were going to be a great parent. And let's test it. All right. So our prosperity prayer, please, together. Divine love flowing through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive, and so it is. Thank you. While they're passing those around, it'll take about a minute, and then we'll do our closing prayer. But while they're passing them around, we're announcing we're having a big angel mural painted on this large wall outside the door here. If anybody would like to do extra donations towards that, you can do it online, or you can mail it in, or you can put it in the baskets here, okay? That would be appreciated. It's a really beautiful project here, just big wings, that people can take photos, and it's kind of fun. At the end of service, the chaplains will be available. Jeff's our lead chaplain, and they'll be available they're going to do a group prayer. You can sit and add the prayer power, or you can ask if you need something to be prayed about. They can help you with that. Remember that we have our crystal bed in the yurt outside. Appreciate. Some of you are watching on YouTube, some on Facebook, And some are watching months later, just catching things. And we appreciate you, tuning in and feeling what we've got going on here. This afternoon from 1 to 4 is our psychic fair. Honestly, we have great intuitives and psychics here. They're doing everything from angel reading, sound alchemy, Egyptian numerology, I Ching, tarot, all kinds of a great variety. And it lasts several hours this afternoon. Have one anyway, but especially if you're in a position of making some decisions. Oh my God, it's nice to just get an objective clarity from somebody, okay? And they are screened and they're really, really good, the readers that we have here. Next Sunday, and you can also schedule, even if you can't make it to get a reading, you can just get their names and cards and call and do one over the phone with them. Next Sunday, February 23rd from 12 to 3, we have our Power of Prayer workshop. I'll be facilitating that. So next week, next Sunday after service, you're welcome to join us for that. And then this coming Wednesday is also our healing circle, if you'd like to join us. We just put a circle of chairs out. It's almost like a support group, but you're listening, you're learning, you're sharing, you're healing, you're watching. It's a variety of things you experience there. It's kind of hard to describe, but you can read the brochures or online on our website. It tells you more about it. And if you're interested in becoming one of our sponsors, now's the time. It's great to start the year where we call upon people to think about being a sponsor. It's just like a commitment to $50 or a couple $100 or whatever you can afford per month, so that you're sponsoring musicians or landscape or a certain specific topic. Or it could be I'm just going to be a sponsor and you guys can slot me into whatever category is needing it. But our sponsors, landscape sponsors, they help keep everything upgraded and all that. More foliage and watering, whatever we need to do. If you're sponsoring the musicians, it's great because then we have more to give to the musicians. And I really believe in doing that. These are people that have dedicated their lives to becoming channels in specifically music or lyrics, and I like to support that. All right? So that's that. Please stand for our closing prayer. Please do your best to set your clocks and arrive early, 5 or 10 minutes before the hour. Disrupted because everybody comes in very quietly. It's just that we'd like you to not miss out on all that goes on in the service, okay? So do your best to try to show up maybe 5-10 minutes early if you can remember to do that. How's everyone feeling? Good. Peace. Good. Good to hear. Well, God bless you all and peace be with you all. Centering into gratitude. Please remember that you have a value that God has determined, every one of us. So you're not just kind of choosing to be spiritual or kind of showing up here today. Let's go all the way with it. I have an intense, immense value in God. And God wills that no soul shall perish. That means none of us will be left behind. So we're being watched and cared for so patiently, so lovingly, so forgivingly. And we're asked to do the same for ourselves and each other. The light of God surrounds us. We are the light of God. The love of God enfolds us. We are the love of God. The power of God protects us. We are the power of God. And the presence of God watches over us. We are the presence of God. Wherever we go, God is, I am, we are, and so it is. Peace be with you all. Thank you so much.